start, and then Carlo will bring him in when Amanda lets us know he's on. Are you
Very
okay
good.
with starting the meeting?
Yes. Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds great. Good morning, everyone. This is the first event of this kind for Central Bucks Chamber of Commerce. I'm Jean Vidoni, your chairman of the board, and it's my pleasure to welcome all of you to our virtual State of the State. Because there are so many of us, I'm going to ask you kindly to mute your phone unless you do need to speak, and then you can unmute right before that. First of all, I want to recognize today's sponsors. This event is brought to you by Comcast, the Lomax Companies, and Independence Blue Cross. And we do have with us Brian Jetter, Senior Director of Government and Regulatory Affairs at Comcast. Brian, would you say a few words?
Sure. Thank you, Jean.
You're welcome.
Good morning, everyone. It's, wow, great to see so many familiar faces. This is certainly trying times for everybody, not only in the business community, but us as residents of the county. And so we just wanted to make sure that I reiterate the company's commitment to not only our employees, keeping them safe, certainly our customers. Janet and I are here to help any and all of you as needed, even if it's virtual or by cell phone or by text. But we hope to see you all soon. And turn it back over to Jean. Thanks again to the Chamber, Valley leadership, and the staff. Just always a tremendous job year in and year out. So I hope everyone is safe, and talk to you soon, and looking forward to today's program.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Thomas Lomax, partner and chief financial officer of the Lomax Companies and also a director of Penn Community Bank. Welcome. Do you want to say hello?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. I want to especially thank, I know State Senator Steve Saro's not on yet, but I'll thank him virtually. Well, everybody's getting thanked virtually, I guess, but he'll get it. And state representatives Todd Polachek, Wendy Thomas, Wendy Allman, and Megan Schroeder. Thank you all for taking the time out of your, I'm sure, very busy schedules and joining us this morning. And I also want to give a big shout out to the chamber itself with Vail and the staff, because in these tough times, they've been, I'm sure, going above and beyond the call of duty to try to make sure the community of Bucks County and the businesses in Bucks County continue to function as best they can in these very difficult times.
Thank you.
And hello to Wendy Allman. She just joined.
Great.
Yep.
Hi, Wendy.
And this is,
I hope you heard your shout out, Representative
Steve is on as well, so we're all here. Wonderful.
Oh, great.
That's great.
Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Thomas. So on behalf of the Central Bucks Chamber of Commerce, Board of Directors and Officers, I'm truly thankful to the Pennsylvania legislators who have joined us this morning. I think we can all say that we have not experienced anything like this before, and we are here together to hear your insights and perspectives and really appreciate the time that you're taking. So facilitating this morning will be the co-chair of the Governmental and Veterans Affairs Committee, Carlo Borgia. Carlo co-chairs the committee with Heather Savasco, who could not be with us this morning, but was instrumental in setting this morning's program up. Carlo, I'm going to hand the program over to you at this point.
Thank you, Jean. Good morning, everyone. We're just going to take a couple of minutes to kind of prep what we're going to do with some questions. I think everyone knows that we do have some questions we've gotten from our constituency. I will read the questions or paraphrase them as best I can. Some of them are a little long, but I think you'll get the point very quickly. I'm going to introduce shortly our state senator and state reps, and we're going to start with the state senator. But what I'd like everyone to do is take potentially 3 or 4 minutes and please tell us a little bit about yourself, the market that you cover, the territory that you cover. Some of the questions will focus on a bit of a wide range of issues, but we want to hear what you think and how you feel things are happening here in the state. I'm going to just take a moment to kind of prep from a revenue perspective. I got this from the monthly revenue report in April from the state. Total corporate tax collections, you might be surprised, are down. No, you're not surprised. You know they're down. State and use taxes collections are down. 8% for corporate tax collections, 3% for state collections. Personal income tax collections are down by 12%. Realty transfer taxes are also down by 3%. Inheritance taxes are down by 3.3%. Other revenues are also down by 11.4 million. And net revenue tax collections are down by 8%. Our general fund is also down by 17.3%. Now, obviously, this is not a surprise. We've kind of expected it given what was happening with the COVID shutdown. But now it's time to open up. It's time to get revenues back in place in business. I know there'll be some commentary on the budget, but with this kind of background of what is down from a revenue perspective, let's take a look at that and let's hear a little bit more about how that impacts all of us in the state. How do we make up those shortfalls? More importantly, how can we make up those shortfalls in taxes when even our businesses are down and they're having difficulties keeping employees in place? So let's keep that as a backdrop of what we're going to be talking about shortly, and then we can discuss those particular details. I'd like to begin with our State Senator, Steve Santisaros. If you don't mind, take a couple of minutes. Steve, I believe your time is short with us, so take a couple extra minutes if you need to cover some issues that might be important that you want to have everyone in the chamber hear. Steve, please.
Sure. Thank you very much. And I do apologize that I have to I have a short period of time this morning. I have my annual physical scheduled today, and before I knew that we were having this, and that had been delayed from March because of the pandemic. So I do appreciate the opportunity to participate this morning. So I think now it's without question that the 21st century has been an interesting one so far. If you think back over the last 20 years, the events that have happened in our country and in the world are really unprecedented in many ways. And certainly this pandemic probably tops that list. It has wrought some pretty tremendous damage to our economy. There's no question about that. The difference, obviously, between the downturn that exists now and what had happened under the Great Recession, and for that matter, under the Great Depression and previous depressions in our country's history, is that this one is artificial. It was one that was created by the need to shut things down to respond to the pandemic. And the good news in that regard is that the mitigation that we took here in Pennsylvania seems to have been successful. We all feared that our hospitals would be overrun, that there would be a tremendous spike in new COVID-19 cases, and as a consequence, there would be a much higher loss of life. And that did not happen. And that didn't happen because all of us really did our part to make sure that the curve was flattened. And so that's great news, because our first job, of course, was to save lives. But as you said, it came at a cost. And we are now at a point, today is the first day of yellow here in southeastern PA.
Yay!
Yeah, it's good. It's good news for everybody. And I will tell you, according to the governor's office, what they've been doing is evaluating the first 2 weeks of yellow in each of the regions of the state. And if here in Bucks County, for example, over the next 2 weeks, our numbers of cases continue to decline, and there's no new spike in cases, then we will be moved in 2 weeks into green. So that is obviously very good news for us as well. And I'm hoping, therefore, by the 19th of June or so, we will be in the green phase. So, but what does that all mean? And how do we dig out of the problem that we're in now? You know, there has been obviously a lot of help from the federal government by way of stimulus. There's been some help from the state with some business loan programs. The CARES bill that we passed last week includes over $200 million in small business grant money, which is also going to help. But the truth of the matter is we need another federal stimulus, primarily to be able to bail out the state as well as many of our larger municipalities. And I think the good news is that there's bipartisan support, as far as I can tell, in Congress for that idea. There will be, in all likelihood, haggling over what the amount is and how it gets driven out. But Pennsylvania is not alone in the budget woes and the shortfalls in revenues that you just went through. You know, just about every state in the country is facing those types of challenges as a consequence of the downturn. So we need money. If we're going to address our $5.5 billion cliff, which is currently what we have, and it's probably bigger than that at this point, we are going to need help from the federal government. Yes, there is a very good chance that as we reopen, revenues will start to tick up. But I don't think over the course of even the next 5 months, we are going to make up the ground that we've lost in the last 3 months. So we are going to need a pretty significant stimulus from the federal government. The budget that was just passed, as you probably have heard, is essentially a 5-month budget. It funds everything for the first 5 months. It fully funds education for the remaining 7 months. But after month 5, for all the other lines, there's a cliff. Now, I voted against that budget. Many of my colleagues in the Senate, including in the Democratic caucus, voted for it. I think reasonable minds could differ on it. The reason I voted against it was not because I thought necessarily that approach was a horrible approach, but rather because our fiscal year ends on June 30, and I thought that we still had time to see whether the federal government was going to put together a package and calculate that into our budget calculations moving forward. So we'll see what happens, despite the fact that we passed the budget last week. And I think that was done primarily because no one wanted to see what the numbers were going to look like in June. It could be that if we get a stimulus package coming out of Congress this month, perhaps we could, in Harrisburg, go back and take a look at the budget and adjust it accordingly. I hope that's the case, because I am concerned about that cliff that occurs on December 1st. And there aren't really a lot of good choices for us if we don't get additional help from the federal government. We can do certain things like the Marcellus Shale tax. We can do some other things, combined reporting, but all those things don't get us to $5.5 billion, if not more. So at some point, we'd be looking at some pretty painful cuts, and I don't think that's any place that anyone, Republican or Democrat, really wants to be. So so we're going to have to see. My request to all of you as constituents is to lobby our congressmen, our state senate, our U.S. senators, so that we get to that point where we have some kind of stimulus. And I think I suspect that all three of them are on board with that idea. I haven't had conversations with them about it yet, but I do think they probably recognize that there's an issue here in Pennsylvania that has to be dealt with. The other thing I want to raise and just kind of leave with you is this: everything we've been hearing from the health experts is that the extent to which we continue to practice good social distancing and use masks and so forth over the course of the next few months will have a direct impact on the extent or severity of any second wave of the virus in the late fall, early winter. And that's obviously going to be critically important from a health perspective, but it's going to be really important from an economic perspective too, because I think we can all agree that we don't want to go back into a lockdown in later in the year, early next year. We've seen what that has done, and a double dip can have devastating impacts on the economy. So I would also ask that all of you be really advocates for or ambassadors for the notion that not just all of our businesses, but everyone we come in contact with has to really comply with that. We need to make sure we're practicing good personal hygiene. We need to make sure we're wearing the masks. I see a lot of people out there who are not wearing masks, and that's a problem. And it's a little less of a problem outside, because it seems that that's the area there where you're least likely to pick up the virus. But inside, especially as our businesses start to reopen and people start to go into stores and other businesses, it is going to be an issue. So we have to make sure we do that. And we have to make sure we're smart about that, because it will have a direct impact on what happens later on. And it's, again, from both a health as well as an economic perspective, it's important that we observe that. So that's where we are. And I'm happy to take any questions in the last few minutes that I have before I've got to jump. But again, I want to thank you all for putting this together. Dale, as always, you do a great job. The Central Bucks Chamber is really a great a jewel for us here in Bucks County, and we're grateful for everything that everyone does.
Thank you, State Senator Santasero. Todd Polinchuk, take a couple minutes, take 2 or 3 minutes, and tell us the territory you covered, a little bit about your background, and anything what you have as we move forward. Thank you.
Okay, great. I really appreciate it, Bill. Thank you, and
Hey,
thank you,
Todd.
Chamber, for having me this morning. I do appreciate that. A little bit about my background. I'm a first-time representative. Never ran for office before in my life, so I keep looking for the book, How to Legislate in a Pandemic for Dummies. I can't seem to find it anywhere, but we're trying to figure this out as we go along. A little bit about my background. I'm a 20-year Navy pilot, and after that, I got out and went into a similar field, real estate, where now I fly a desk. But I was a realtor for 18 years, a small business person here in Bucks County, right in Doylestown, at Keller Williams in Doylestown. My license is still current. I'm an active realtor. Although I have not sold a house since I've done this, this is a full-time job. You can't do both. So the license is current, but I'm not practicing. So obviously, small business is near and dear to my heart. I think if you'll look through what's been going on through this pandemic, there was a time when we needed to shut down and get a hold of this and figure out where we are for the safety of our folks. That time has long passed in my mind to the detriment of our small businesses. I think you can do there are ways to do things safely, protect our community, yet at the same time not snuff the life out of some of our small businesses. There are small businesses right in our community that are never coming back. So those are deaths in my mind as well. These are people that have spent their life trying to get these businesses up. It's everything to them, and they're gone. So this has been a passion of mine from the get-go. I ran the real estate bill. It was a no-brainer for me. I was the state president of the Realtors. It was something that I saw that was very easy to do safely. 1 or 2 people in a house. Ran the bill. I think we set a record. We moved it through the House and Senate in 27 days onto the governor's desk. He vetoed it, and 4 hours later, he opened real estate up using much of the similar language that was in the bill. So we're going to fight. I'm going to continue to fight for small businesses. My colleagues, if you look at our voting records, you'll see exactly where we've stood through this whole thing with relationship to small businesses, and we're not going to let up. My foot is on the gas, as are my colleagues, and we are not going to stop until we let our folks. Here's the thing. Let our folks and small businesses decide if and when they are ready to do this safely. It is their decision. It should be at this point. They can decide to do this safely, abiding by the social distancing, abiding by the CDC guidelines. It's time, folks. Okay, we're in the yellow, and we're talking about going to the green, but guess what? The green doesn't save us either, because there are a lot of the green where businesses still can't survive, even in the green. The green is not normal. Don't think the green is good. Green is not normal. We need to get past that too. So anyway, that's where I'm at. I'm very obviously a little passionate about this, but we need to get our folks back to work, making a living so they can put food on the table, and we can do it safely. So thank you for having me today.
If I may, keep the passion up. There's some questions we're going to need that passion on very shortly, okay?
Fair enough, Carlos. Thank you.
Thank you. State Rep Schroeder, take a few minutes, 3 minutes, please. Tell us about you, who you are, your background, and the market that you cover.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Hello. Hope your morning is going well. I'm trying to distant learn my child and do this, so sorry if you see a little one flying by. It's called multitasking. But my name's Megan Schroeder. I represent the 29th Legislative District. It covers Warminster, Warwick, Ivy Land Borough, and Buckingham, except for the 2 upper precincts with Representative Ullman, who's on the call, represents. My background is that I'm first a freshman legislator this year, my first term. Lots of interesting things to go through as your first term as a freshman, but I have spent probably since I was 14 years old interning in a legislative office, helping constituents, learning about our state government and our federal governments and how they interact. Worked for Representative Bernie O'Neill for 10 years on staff, ran his district operations, and then I worked for Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick as his district director, running all the district operations for a year. Went back to Bernie O'Neill's office, and then I ran for office. So a lot of my background has to do with outreach in the community and working to help people find resources that they need to. So walking into this job, I felt like I really knew the community needs locally in Central Bucks, and I just want to keep giving back. For example, you know, I had a CB East Cares meeting yesterday, a board of directors meeting that I serve on, and we were discussing, you know, what this looks like going forward. What our events look like? What does fundraising look like for our nonprofits and our corporate sponsors and what they're going through? Everything's connected. Everything affects our community. From the very beginning of this pandemic, I have stated that I think we can actually do this because I believe in our business owners to weigh out our health needs and our economic needs. And personally, I think looking at what has come through our phone lines and emails and conversations I've had with constituents and business owners, I trust that our business owners can make those decisions what's best for the safety of their employees, for themselves, and their reputations. So I have been very strong, just like Todd, very passionate about this because those are the same businesses that you all help when we need things in the community. You step up every time, and I know that you can step up now and make sure that we're keeping people safe, but also that the things that you worked for 40 years and created these businesses that you get to keep and get to strive. So we need to learn how to strive with the virus, and we need long-term planning and transparency to move forward. So that's, you know, really what I feel like through this pandemic. And, you know, I was to serve on the education committee. So we've been talking a lot also about what education is going to look like going forward. And the governor released some guidelines this week with the Secretary of Education. So more to come with that. And, you know, later, maybe if there's any questions, I can answer some of that. But I know that this affects everyone. It affects job opportunities. I know the unemployment compensation portals and the portals for self-employed individuals, the PUA, have been a disaster. Finally, people are getting payments and things, but there's a lot that we have learned through this pandemic that we're going to have to change. So I look forward to talking to you all more.
Thank you. Good morning to you, State Rep Schroeder. State Rep Wendy Thomas, please take 3 minutes and tell us about your market area and your passions within legislation.
Good morning, everyone.
Good
Yes,
morning.
I'm a state rep, Wendy Thomas. I represent Northampton Township, Wrightstown Township, Upper Makefield, New Hope, and Solebury. My background is I worked in healthcare for 30 years, but most significantly, probably to your membership, is I worked for a small startup that we grew into a multinational company, and the company helped people who were struggling with healthcare and healthcare issues. So just an amazing experience. So that's a little bit about my background. I'm also a freshman, a first-time legislator. I did sit on Council Rock School Board for 10 years prior to that as well. I'm going to start with the budget since that was some of the beginning part. I did vote for the budget. I don't know where the finances are going to come, and with all the extended deadlines, I really believed that we need the time to see how much money we're going to have. It's desperate right now. Do I think we're going to make it all up? No. But I just, while we're on the phone, got a text that unemployment nationally was down just a teeny bit. So good signs. And I don't feel we have the ability to project how much money the state's going to have. So I thought it was a good and reasonable. I actually want to give a shout out to Senator Sancero, who said reasonable minds can disagree. So absolutely agree with that. I thought funding of education can't really operate on a partial budget. Not that anybody operates well on a partial budget, but they kind of need that critical to look to get back to school. And we've heard from tons of parents who want to get their kids back to school. So they need to know they were going to have flat funding, which frankly was hard because in this times of revenues being down 20 or 30%, giving somebody even flat funding is a stretch, and I was proud to be a part of that. So that's a little bit on the budget. The pandemic and what we're facing, the small businesses in my mind are the ones that I'm hearing from that have been hurt the most. Probably the biggest downtown I represent is New Hope, and I bet everybody on this call has been to New Hope at some point. And we're hopeful that they'll come back. But I've heard from many struggling people in New Hope, and you know, it really hurts my heart, and we need to be able to allow those small businesses, absolutely with safety precautions. Nobody, well, I don't believe anybody really wants to go back willy-nilly. We're going to have to take some safety precautions so that we don't spread disease. But I believe those small businesses can come back, can do it safely, and I look forward to advocating for them so that they can get back, get fully functional, and we have our robust downtowns that we had prior to this. So I think that's it for me.
Thank you. State Rep Wendy Allman. Do we have Wendy Allman?
I'm just asking Wendy to unmute because it looks like she muted. Wendy, can you unmute?
Uh-oh.
Hang on. There we go.
There we go. Thank you, Dr.
Welcome.
Darby, for helping out at a time of, you're always there when we have a critical problem. We can count on you to get us through. Thank you all for being here. This is a really important conversation, and this couldn't come at a better time. We've hit the yellow phase, but it's just time to roll up our sleeves and get together, work together cooperatively, because this is the point, this is the corner. We need to turn this corner and we need to move forward. I was trying to get May's unemployment numbers. I can't find them. Bucks County's unemployment numbers for the end of April, a very unsettling 15%. 51,000 Bucks County people were unemployed at the end of April. So how do we get people back to work? By working with you folks, because you're the big employers, and we need to support you. We need to pull together our municipal resources, our state resources, our federal resources, so that we can do everything possible to get you moving forward, because you are the drivers that employ everybody. We got to get this boat afloat, and we got to get it moving in a forward direction. Right now, we're just kind of spinning in an eddy, trying to make forward progress. It's been a really interesting freshman experience for me as well. I come to the legislature from a lifetime as an educator, as a community college teacher. So my students have been a slice of life from every different aspect of the community. I think I know what people want, what they believe in, what they value, and I know how hard everyone here works to just maintain their families, do their jobs, get an education, move forward, take care of themselves. Well, now we have to take that piece of the government that helps to take care of those people who right now are really hurting. And I want to do a short shout out to all of our legislative assistants. My guys were there, and I'm sure all of yours were as well. 6 days a week, sometimes into 7, just trying to sort out some of the terrible problems people were encountering, our business owners and our workers, with unemployment, with healthcare, with early on trying to make sure that they had the PPE for our healthcare folks. What I'm looking at is how do we move forward? And I have some ideas, but I don't want to take too much time now because I know you have concerns. But one thing I do want to mention is that our revenue losses, our shortfalls are really significant. And I'm really concerned about making sure that education can do what it needs to do. And one piece of revenue shortfall is going to be in tourism. I'm on the tourism, outdoor recreation and hospitality. That's the biggest industry in Bucks County, and it is projected to be the last to come fully on board. And there are a lot of concerns as to how to make sure that we maintain those businesses, because a huge part of all of this is going to be not just change what you're allowed to do, but to change public trust and public confidence, so that they are confident in their ability to go safely to a restaurant, to a shop, to travel to Bucks County, and enjoy what we have, because that brings along tourism dollars. And that's a big piece of what we can do to get on board. And right now we're lagging even more than any of our other industries. So I think now it's time to hear some of your questions and concerns. So I'm going to just turn it back. Thank you.
Thank you, State Rep Allman. Thank you. I want to begin with some questions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pose a question to an individual. Once I've done that, I'll allow every other state rep or senator to come in and comment if they wish. And then we'll go to the next person who I'll direct the question to, and we'll move as quickly as we can with this. So if I may, because I do know that the state senator has another event, State Senator Sinacero, are you still with us?
I think he had to leave, Carlo.
Okay, then let me do this. Let me begin with Todd Polinchuk, and here's the question, and everyone will have an ability to comment on this question, okay? The public was told that if we the people stay in the homes, in our hometowns, limit traffic, gather in smaller numbers, that would help stop the spread of COVID-19. If that's a correct understanding, then why did we close our local stores and force people to travel greater distances and have more people occupying smaller numbers of select locations? By closing our local stores, we're creating movement and larger gatherings elsewhere. The understanding of how to stop the spread and the government actions of closing our local stores doesn't seem correct. It seems incongruous. Please explain how these government actions keep us safer. State Rep Polinchuk?
Carlo, I think you teed that one up for me. That's a great question for me.
I like your passion.
All right, good, because the answer is I don't have any idea why the governor's doing it this way. To be honest with you, I think the system of the waivers was random, capricious. It didn't make sense. You had two similar businesses. One got a waiver, one didn't get a waiver. You got your big box stores of Lowe's and Home Depot with 200 people in. You had a small mom and pop retail store who could easily let one or two people in at a time. We're not allowed to open. So so with regards to that, I don't like the way this was being done either. I don't think this is the proper way to do it. I think it should be in the beginning. We needed to do it. We needed to lock everybody. Let's get a hold of this. Let's figure it out. Well, guess what? I think we've gotten to the point where we're understanding the science of it. We have a fantastic Department of Health right here in Bucks County with Dr. Damsker. I think we should be allowed to figure out on our own now how to safely open and let our folks get back. I think we could have done this a while ago. I think this time is a long time coming. I think we should have actually started this a while back, because you're right. Our small businesses are dying on the vine, but we're allowed to let people into big box stores and do things like that. So it made zero sense to me. So with regards to that, you'll see that we've been fighting now. We've been trying to open up industry after industry after industry by running bills to force the governor. And if you kind of watch how it's played out, we'll press the governor on some and he'll open it. We pressed him on construction, he opened it. We pressed him on real estate, he opened it. We're pressing him on other things, and so that's why we're not letting up at all. A lot of folks go, well, he's going to veto all your bills anyway. Well, guess what? Let him veto them. In the meantime, it's putting the pressure on him that's hopefully getting us back to work, and that's what we need to do smartly. So before I stand on that, Carl, thank you for the question.
Thank you. Any other state rep, please jump in if you wish.
I was just going to say, Megan Schroeder, hi. And also if you look at it, what Todd said, a big box store like Walmart and Target are open, but our mom and pop shops and our local businesses, even having curbside pickup or one customer in the store at a time, was still not passed and put into law. Like, I don't understand how you can compare the health differences and how we're saving more people by doing that. We're just shoving everybody into one store. And for those weeks, those individuals that were shopping in those stores didn't even have masks on. And then all of a sudden we all needed to wear a mask again. So it's just, it doesn't make sense. I think sometimes, you know, we look at things and it should be based on data and science. And we've been saying that from the beginning. And I know that one person picking up from curbside versus a bunch of people being jammed in a giant store is not more safe. And no one can tell me different. I think that having phases of colors as well to determine what's open and not, they constantly change, they're confusing. It doesn't let our business owners or even our community members be able to plan and do their budgets and what they need to do to know what to prepare for. And red's not much more different than yellow. You know, we can have curbside pickup now with retail, but it's not really any different than where we're at now. Unfortunately, I know it's yay, we're in yellow, but yay and yellow isn't much different other than groups of 25 can be together. You know, outdoor dining finally can be together. Hair salons aren't open. Our pet shop, our hair salons, barber shops, and I can't even think of the other one because I'm going on my rant. But it's just, it doesn't make sense. It's not practical, and you know, we've asked for why those are the case, and we don't get answers. And a lot of it was not to overload our healthcare system, and I understand that. And I think we all, as good citizens where we live, did that for everybody, and we're team players. But now it just doesn't make sense, and I think people are frustrated and see through that. That's all I wanted to add.
Thank you.
Hello?
Please go ahead.
Yes, okay. So I am not going to try to explain the mysterious workings of the waiver system. A lot of that has been a true head scratcher for us all. It's like, why X and not Y has not been making sense. At the same time, I do want to make a comment about some of the, what we're calling opener bills. There are some differences, and I'm just going to give you what I see as an overview. This is a moving target. We were all completely unprepared, and I'm going to say every single one of us, unprepared for what was going to come, and we did not know what the long story was going to be. And we have learned more about the disease progression, about how to handle things. Every week brings new information. Every month is almost like a new month because we know a great deal more. So what made sense in March clearly was outmoded, outdated, and out the window by the end of or the beginning of April, and then April to May, and now May into June. Every month is a different story. And so obviously we need to be working with the fluid changing situation. As far as the opener bills, I think Todd mentioned that his bill got through in a record 27 days. That's 27 days of not being open, of not accomplishing things. Legislatively, legislation takes time. There's no way to do it swiftly, whereas executive situations can be done very swiftly. They can be undone swiftly. If we were to have a resurgence in the fall, and we don't know whether we will, we would have to undo legislation to say, we're having a problem, here's a hot spot, here's a region, here's just a resurgence of the epidemic, and we have to shut things down again. We would have to undo legislation, which could take another several weeks to accomplish. So that's one of the things. And the other aspect of these broad-based legislative initiatives is that many, until the last couple of weeks, they were all or nothing, the entire state. Well, what makes sense in Elk County doesn't make sense for Philadelphia County. In fact, what makes sense for Bucks County doesn't always make sense for Philadelphia County. So the regional ability to dial in or dial out, I think, is a critical difference between these broad-based legislative approaches and the dialed in executive approaches. My district is a huge district. People are talking to me. The northern part of my district has had very, very few incidents. Doylestown is a hot spot. Right now, we're all good, but that is one of the distinctions between an all or nothing approach, a open every industry approach or open a specific industry approach, and a regional approach which can be dialed in and dialed back. That's just something I want you guys to consider.
Thank you. Let me go to my second question, and let me go to Wendy Ullman, if I may. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania had a willingness and an ability to shut down businesses and take aggressive action against operating businesses in the name of public health and safety. We now see mass gatherings of people who are less than 6 feet apart as they're protesting and going through these demonstrations and gatherings and marches. We don't see political leaders or the Secretary of Health issuing mandates in the name of public health and safety against the spread of COVID-19. We've heard some comments from some of you on the phone already that talked about masks, not masks, public demonstrations, and different actions taken by legislators and the governor and given these particular situations. Is this the right way to approach these issues?
I'm not sure what the question is. Are you saying that we should do something about these mass gatherings where people are clearly in larger groups than 25, or whether we should be using some kind of enforcement principles to break up these? Are we referring to the demonstrations?
Yes, I believe we are. No, we're not talking about breaking anything up. The way they're being treated. COVID-19 is being treated one way. These demonstrations are being treated another way. In COVID-19, if 3 or 4 people or half a dozen people get together, we see things about breaking those up or trying to enforce social distancing. Legislators are doing this. It's on the news. This is not happening in the same way with the more massive gatherings. Why is that? Why is one being treated one way in fear of COVID-19 and the other one, we don't even hear COVID-19? Again, if there's a second wave coming down, we don't want businesses shut down again. That's what the question I think is referring to.
Right. That's a real question. Will these demonstrations result in a resurgence? This is a concern. It goes in the face of our best advice, our best knowledge of the disease spread. It's a concern. And there's going to be a demonstration scheduled in Harrisburg. I believe it's the 8th. I should know this. Yes, there's a demonstration scheduled for the 8th. Like these demonstrations, they will be beyond what is allowed under guidelines. This is where the nexus of First Amendment rights to speech intersects with guidance on what are best practices. I believe that this will not be limited, restricted, broken up in any sort. I've been very comfortable in my area with police practices of just keep the lid on, respectful of people's rights, and just let what happens. There have been other gatherings in my district where people have gotten together and there have been no actions as far as enforcement or even given warnings. That, I think, is a measured approach to what people are going to do. That there is no criminal intent, there is no criminal impact. The looters is a different story, and it's a real problem for our police. How do we keep people safe? How do we keep people's property safe? We're putting a tremendous burden on our enforcement officers. So it's a problem. The answer is not clear, but right now, letting these people demonstrate has been a decision, frankly, because just as there's going to be a demonstration in Harrisburg of a different sort, they are different in kind, but not in practice. I wonder if someone else has some insights on that as well.
May I add a comment?
Please.
So I think that what the question gets at the root of a very real frustrations. You know, if I'm a small business owner and I've shut my business down for 3 months and I can't even open till green, and at green I'm 50%, and people can go out and gather in masses, and I agree, it's an unknown what will happen. I got to tell you, I would be out of my mind. The financial hardship, this is I can keep safe. I can have a couple people in my store. I can wipe everything down in between. I've heard this is what I hear from our small business owners. And so honestly, we should be in green today. Flat out, we should be in green today. So, you know, we don't know what's going to happen. And this has been a huge unknown. But with everything's happening, the people we're holding back are still our small business. I have a salon owner every day. My heart breaks, and she names the enormous expense she's going to go to keep people safe. And I just don't know as a legislative body how we can defend that. You know, I can't. So for me, you know, we got to stop doing the industry thing. We got to start saying, if you operate safe, and these small business owners have enormous work of outlines of what they're doing, you can open, and you can open today. And we're going to let you be responsible. You've given up a ton for all of us. It's time we give back to you. And, you know, so I'm a little on the passion thing, but I think what happened, everybody wants people to have their First Amendment rights. I don't believe there's anybody who doesn't believe in that. Everybody believes the looters and the riots were bad, and they took what was peaceful protest and deterred the conversation, frankly. And in Bucks County, we're very fortunate. Our police forces have been very supportive and very good. So that aside, I think what the chamber's dealing with is business owners who have given up everything and see this and understand people's rights, but they can't open their shop and let 3 people in at a time and clean afterwards. That's unreasonable. And we as legislators need to fight for that.
Any other state
Todd wanted to say something, didn't you, Todd?
Yes, please, really, really quickly. And I guess in the beginning, I guess I should have told you my district. I actually have Chalfont, Hilltown, New Britain, Silverdale, Dublin, Telford, that whole area. And as I was a business owner, I owned a sports bar restaurant in Hilltown. It still exists. It's Crossroads Tavern on 152. But I will tell you that if I had to shut down for these 3 months, and then when it's green, I can only go to 50% in the dining room and 50% at the bar, I don't make it. My business goes under. So green does not mean good to me. Green is still, my business closes up. And a lot of these small businesses do not have 6 months of revenue or money put aside that they can keep their businesses open. So just because we're saying, oh, soon we'll go green, that doesn't mean squat to me. And I'm sure that's the same for a lot of businesses. So 50% in a business is insane to me. We've got to let these folks decide on their own how they can safely do it. That's it. And the last point I want to make is also legislatively versus through executive action. Well, guess what? The Constitution set up three system of government where we have checks and balances. I don't want one individual having the sole power to decide who can do what in the state of Pennsylvania, what businesses can survive, what businesses can fail. There's a reason why we have this process, and that's the reason why I don't want the governor deciding, oh, I'm going to do this, now I'm going to do this, now I'm going to do that. That's why we have the legislature, to create these laws and to have that check and balance on the governor. So, thank you.
Can I just take a piece of what Todd was saying, because, and then I think we've sort of gotten off of the original question, and capacity. Capacity is going to be key. We've been talking about that in tourism, outdoor recreation, and hospitality. We need to address that immediately because, and particularly restaurateurs, but also all business owners, there is a break-even point. And unless you have enough butts in the chairs, you can't make money. And we need to address that as swiftly as possible towards expanding what is right now pretty restrictive capacity. Because in particular restaurateurs where you have to have fresh food, you have to have food, and then it doesn't, if you don't use it, it goes bad, and you have to have a certain number of staff working, finding a way to find that sweet spot to maintain safety as well as allowing enough carrying capacity so that people can, even if it's only break even, which I come out of a business family, it's frightening. Breaking even is not where anybody wants to be. We've got to address that, one of the very first things that we do going forward.
Thank you. I'd like to pose this question to State Rep Schroeder, if I may. And again, anyone who has any comments, please jump in. The question is about our economy and our communities. It's vital to move forward. We've been in this lockdown for a period of time. We've talked about revenues. We've talked about opening up businesses. We need to make this move as quickly as we can to get ourselves back on positive, solid footing. There was a comment made that the Commonwealth can go to the federal government and ask for some financial support. Well, many of our constituents can't do that. We need to open up and get back to business. So we do need a bipartisan support, bipartisan bills in Harrisburg, as some of the commentary worked on this. So the question is this: how often have you crossed the line? How often have you reached out across the line from a bipartisan support and gotten support? Not only yourself, please give me some information about that, but also talk about what your experiences are in the legislature. Is that happening? And if not, why not?
Well, I'd like to first start out with, here in Bucks County, a lot of us operate as a community more than Democrat, Republican, because we represent our area. It's important that we're representing the same values that we're bringing up to Harrisburg. And we do that all the time. Specifically for me this year as a freshman, I've been able to do that with the student debt conversation and working with a colleague in Delaware County, Jen O'Mara. And we work together to help make a student bill of rights, basically saying that we need a avenue, an ombudsman basically office for students to go there to talk about their loans. But there are many examples that everybody, I think on this actual Zoom call, we work together in a bipartisan manner, especially about things about education and our environment. It's very important that we keep Bucks County beautiful and clean water and all those things. I think during this shutdown, there might be some differing of opinions on how we go forward. And I believe that my job as a legislator in my district is to be that voice for our people, our business owners, to do what's best for them to be able to plan and to open and to survive, but also to keep everybody safe. So there's that balance that we have to strike, and there might be different roads of how to get there, but I think we all want us to get through this together and to work together. We have to. We can't be individually going in different directions. You bang your head into a wall. You need compromise. It's not a dirty word. We need to work together in a bipartisan fashion. We also have to make sure, though, that when we see something wrong, we call each other out on it, too. I think that's very important as being a leader in the community. I think even with the last question that we were talking about these, differing of groups and what that means and how 25 is different than whenever. I mean, the governor was out in one of the protests, which was peaceful, which is great. And everybody, I think, has the right to do that. That's our First Amendment right. But clearly there was more than 25 people there in a yellow county walking down the street, not 6 feet from each other. So if we're going to encourage these behaviors during press conferences and other times, we need to make sure that we're speaking and doing the walk. And I think our county, with Dr. Damsker and our leadership there, the infectious disease background, I think that they're entitled to be able to outline for us what's safe. And I trust them. And that's kind of my feelings on that. But yes, bipartisan, working together, especially for what our future looks like financially, is something we're going to have to do together. Our budget deadlines for taxes and things got pushed back to July and August. We needed to give ourselves, and that's why I voted for the budget, time to see what those revenues are going to look like, so we are more informed, that we just don't rush through something and make guesses and don't get to it. And unfortunately, all those different games that get to play in Harrisburg. So this was a way to make sure that education is done. And then we also, I don't know how much everybody got into the CARES Act and where that money was going. from the bill that we passed. But a lot of that went to nursing homes and vaccination research and all different things that are needed. So I'll let the others speak now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
State Rep
Right,
Thomas?
Carlo,
Yes.
oh, I'm sorry, okay.
Go ahead, Todd, please go. Go ahead, please.
I just really quickly on the bipartisan thing, it's absolutely necessary to do. I always talk when I door knock or talk to individuals, they go, are you a Republican or a Democrat? I go, does it really matter? 60 to 70% of us live somewhere in the middle. We're not way on the left, we're not way on the right. And that's where we have to live. I'll tell you, I'm very proud of that real estate bill that I ran. My prime co-sponsor was a Democrat, Joe Cerisi, from out in the Phoenixville area. We worked on it together. We had one vote from veto-proof bill in both the Senate and the House. So we had colleagues on both sides of the aisle. So yeah, to move stuff, you absolutely got to do it together. We just got to get the governor on board with us on when he sees that bipartisanship. But yeah, it's a must. The fighting doesn't do you any good. We got to work for the people, and the best way to do that is by working as a team.
Thank you. State Rep Thomas, any thoughts?
Just very quickly, I think it's just something for you to think about. And I don't know how the chamber's done this, but when we went to remote vote, which was great, we also interacted with each other less. So where you would see your colleagues in the hallway and you'd have a conversation and say, what do you think about this on? And there's collaboration and different thinking going on. My personal belief is the first month we were remote voting, we were all in our silos. Our information streams were from our leadership on each side. And we had to learn how to interact with each other and collaborate across the aisle remotely. And so I just give that out there for food for thought. I think everybody on this call has worked across the aisle. I've worked on mental health with a lot, there's been a lot of collaboration, but then as we started to come out and started to look for ways, there was some philosophical differences and it did cross lines, but the reopening and the move forward, and as Rep Schroeder and Palanchek and Ullman have talked about the budget, we are going to need to work together, and we want to. Being an environment where we can easily collaborate would help us. Zoom is great. It's not the same thing as a colleague in the hall. I'm old, I know, but for me, it's not the same. So a little bit of getting back to running into people and having side conversations and moving things forward, I think will help. Just
thank you, State Rep Thomas. I want to thank State Rep Palanchek, Schroeder, Thomas, and Ullman for joining us today. I also like to thank Steve Santaceros, the state senator, for joining. We're running a little late. I apologize for that. What I like to do is, again, say thank you for all joining us. And again, I greatly appreciate your passion and the work that you've done on behalf of the small businesses in the Chamber of Commerce. I also like to take just a couple of minutes to thank the hosts that we have for today, Thomas Lomax and Lomax Companies, Independence Blue Cross, and of course, Brian Jenner at Comcast. On behalf of the Government Affairs at the Chamber of Commerce and my co-chair, Heather Savasco, I'm greatly appreciative of being part of this particular presentation today. And more importantly, I want to thank our constituents. We had so many questions. Obviously, we did not get a chance to even broach the majority of those questions, let alone what's coming across on chat. This is a fantastic chamber. You can see where we were just a couple of weeks ago. We were shut down, and now we're opening up as best we can to bring our membership and their ideas to the state reps. We need your help. We need your bipartisan support. Thank you for joining us today. Let me kick back to Dr. Vail Garvin or to Jean to take the conversation from here. Jean Bedoni, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Carlo. Yes, I'm just going to pass right over to Vail for comments. Thanks. Thanks, everyone, for attending. This was a really important conversation.
It really was. And on behalf of our entire team, I want to say thank you all for participating. I think Bucks County has great representation at all levels of our government, and I thank each and every one of you for your passion, but more specifically for your efforts at trying to keep us as good a county as we can be. We're all here for you. I want you to know that the questions that were asked, the perceptions that may have gone out are those of the people that responded to us. They're not the chamber's perspectives necessarily. Just want to make that clear a little bit. I love each and every one of you. And as I look to see who all's on the line, I'm so proud that we have close to 50 people on. And I just think that's amazing. So for our state as a state being virtual, this is a new experience. I want to thank Amanda Solar for figuring out how to work our Zoom. Amanda, thank you very much. And I saw Brad on the line as well. We are unlocking our doors today. Now, what that means is anyone can come in and talk with us, but what we're doing to stay safe for ourselves and for you is that we're asking that you call ahead and make appointments. We have masks, we have Purell, we have thermometers, we have it all, gloves. So we really are following all the guidelines. Once again, thank you, Jean, for your leadership. And thank you all so much for being here today. Thank you, Carlo, for posing the questions to us from our wonderful business community. And Chamber Chat is coming up. I had a big interview yesterday with Matt Caffrey from Chambers and Patrick Kennedy from Superior Woodcraft. You'll find that very interesting. So everybody, thank you. We're open. Jean,
Thank you, Val. Thank you.
Thank you, Val.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us, Val.
Everybody.
Thank you all.
All righty.
Bye, everyone.
Be safe all.
Yes. Be well, be safe. God
Yeah.
bless.